Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for May 31st, 2024. I'm Benji Fisher, sharing my screen and moderating, and also present are Arthur Schall, Ralph Kohler, Simo Helston, and Scott. So there's this old issue. It's number 2671162. Originally from 2016, and it's had some attention recently. Also use text editor for summary of a text field. The summary part of the text field should have a WYSIWYG editor because the format applies to body and summary. The proposed resolution is not very specific. Lock down the format for summary in the widget with a question mark. Oh, see in chat that my audio is distorted. Let me adjust my microphone. Does that help?
Yep, much better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for pointing it out. So let's see. Here I have a plain Drupal 11 site with the Mommy demo profile, the experimental navigation module enabled. And let's just check say the article content type. Under manage form display. Body uses text area with a summary. Okay, I think that's what we want. So let's add an article. And here's the body field. And the text. We're using editor. If I want to italicize CK editor, I have to reach the button to do that. Some title before I can save. And sure enough, CK editor comes out in italics as expected. And however, if I click on edit summary, it's just a plain text box. And if I want to emphasize something, I'd have to type in the actual HTML tags. And I guess that won't show up when I save it, but maybe if there's a view listing articles, it'll probably show up there. But maybe that's not worth demonstrating. Everyone is familiar with these options, I think. Ralph, go ahead.
Just one note, if this issue is still relevant at all, because as far as I understand, it is planned to deprecate text with summary. So I'm not sure.
There's use cases for it remaining, right?
Not sure. From my understanding, summaries should be gone completely or removed completely. So, but I'm not sure. Just wanted to raise the point.
I know there's an issue that's kicking around about making body and summary not required on a node, but that's slightly different too.
Yeah.
I think we should move forward with the fact that they want to look at the ticket. You know, the nature of the ticket. It'll
Yeah, so if someone wants to, in the background, search for an issue, then we can at least mention that on the issue we're looking at. Ah, I think it's already added as a related issue. Deprecate text with summary. This appears to already have the support of framework and product managers, but need to plan out how best to go about it. So this was created just a few months ago and updated about a week ago. So people are actively working on this.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at number 11 is what I'm actually talking about, I think.
Yeah, first of all, I should say for the sake of the recording, the issue I'm looking at is 3427095, and this is the issue that Ralph was referring to, meta deprecate text with summary. And Scott, you were looking at 11, comment 11 on the
11
previous
has
issue?
no, on this issue has comment 11 has the link to the issue that I was talking about.
Ah. In Slack, we discussed how the automatic body functionality needs to be removed in Starshot. That's issue 3447617. Stop automatic storage creation of body field. And Ralph, you've commented on this one.
Yep, I remember now. It's about basically also the install profile. The standard, for example, is also creating at the moment a body field. And that was also the idea to prevent that for content types as well as block types.
And this is a child issue of the one we were just looking at. So part of the same effort. So what do you think? This meta issue seems to have some momentum behind it. Shall we assume that it is likely to happen and it's not worth spending effort on the other one, the one we started with? And Simo gives us another link in the chat, another related issue we have discussed. Edit summary labels unclear to users. And this would also become obsolete if the text with summary field is removed. So this is issue 1562776. That means it's even older. 2012. Saying that the label is unclear. So that's right. I think we've actually looked at this fairly recently, haven't we? That having a link here rather than a details element is just archaic. So I guess that's one of many problems. And also from my experience in site building, many people seem unaware of the summary part of the text with summary field, and they frequently add a separate field, a separate text field when they want a summary. And I guess that would be the standard way to do it going forward if we do deprecate this. So is this worth talking about at all, or shall we look for something else, or shall we try to see if we can make some incremental improvements in this before it goes away.
Or is our
Uh,
impression wrong that it's going away, or just getting removed from a default install of what will be available in the future?
So the meta issue is
Right.
to deprecate the field type. And if that happens, it will be deprecated, perhaps deprecated in Drupal 11 and removed in Drupal 12.
Okay.
But Drupal 10 and 11 are going to be with us for several more years. So I guess my personal answer to the question I just asked is that yes, if it's going to be around for years, then it is worth improving what we have before it goes away. But that's just my opinion. Go ahead.
My only other thought is the reason you were talking about, the reason that people add another field onto nodes is that they get confused. Sites get set up strangely and they need some place to put a meta tag description, and people use that field for tokens because they don't know how to use the summary field correctly.
Huh. You're saying,
Right, people will set up a site, use like remove the page, or no, install a field that uses like paragraphs for creating layouts or other inline options, and they'll have a body and not use it. And sometimes they may have a body for a summary and use views where they get the teaser view, and that's the wrong view. So then they add in one more field for another summary, and that's the meta tag description and that kind of stuff. Your use
yes.
case describe why we have text summary and what people understand how to use it, and what views will do with it out of the box, and tokens will do with it, right? Yeah. It's all a big mess.
Right. So this is it. If you have it, it's an appropriate place to put the summary that you want to use as the description meta tag.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But people don't realize it's there. And, you know, in some sense, I prefer simpler design, and I'd rather have people adding fields for that purpose rather than have this two-part field, which creates various problems.
I think the goal of this existing ticket is good or worth itself, right? In the use case that people have this field on their site, until you're right, even if core deprecates it, people will need it. It'll need to go to contrib somehow because existing sites are going to carry it, right? So the use case where a content editor actually wants to be able to have a teaser from this summary and have it have HTML in it, having a WYSIWYG on it makes sense. So it's worth continuing in that respect. Even if it's deprecated, we'll move out to contrib that way.
Okay, so you and I agree on that. Any other opinions?
Yeah, I think it makes sense because it's going to be around, and also it makes sense to have it working
Okay.
because it will need some kind of migration and stuff like that anyway. So it's probably going to be a contrib, at least first.
Okay, so let's go back to, say, I'm going to close these issues related to removing the field. Don't suppose anyone has installed a copy of Drupal using the patch yet. We have the screenshots. So yes, this looks a lot like what I was seeing. And after the patch, we have the same WYSIWYG toolbar on both summary and the body. Screenshot looks good to me. So why was this tagged for usability review? So Stephen Musgrave added that tag a couple of months ago. He says tagging for usability. My only concern is this feels odd. You essentially have 2 full text fields now, so why not add 2 fields? But we'll leave for usability. So any reactions to that it feels odd?
I think he's saying that for the same reason that we were talking about, that somebody would add on another field and just use that field. But the thing that it does do is that for a lot of content editing situations where they might have short teasers across the site, they might want HTML in it. So
Yeah, I think I agree. Go ahead, Arthur.
Yeah, I think it's kind of remind me of the multi-field idea, but the only one that behave like that, where it's one field, but it actually has multiple parts.
Yes. So this is probably the only field like that in Drupal core where it's sort of like 2 fields pasted together. Go ahead, Simo.
Yeah, I think that one of the important points here is for lazy people who don't want to edit the summary, that it has options. Either you can fill it, or it can crop the first part and use that as summary. So it's just kind of this 2 options, and that makes it good for for people who have sites but don't have so much time to focus on the content at that level. So it kind of provides some level of automation. From the screenshots, what I saw is that it's a little bit confusing to have one CK editor with option to select format and the other one without. So it doesn't support use case where body text can have full HTML and the summary filtered HTML.
Is that possible? Is it from the comments, I got the impression that whatever text format you select for the field is applied to both. So
So is that a technical restriction?
I believe so, or
Mm.
changing it would be out of scope for this issue if the comments are correct. Go ahead, Ralph.
I've posted a link in the chat with the
Okay.
patch applied.
Thank
So you can give it a try. And on the other hand, in regard of Stephen's point that it looks like basically 2 separate fields, I sort of agree that, yeah, I think we already raised the, oh, 1 second. I thought it is admin. Oh, 1 sec. I've changed it for the Drupalism. Yeah.
Well, you're fixing
Try
that.
again.
Let me just say, yeah, I agree. I think that the comment, it's not any more odd to have 2 fields than 2 fields with a text editor than to have 2 fields. So I think the oddness is the structure of the field itself and not the fact that we're providing a text editor for it. But go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, it's mainly it's not directly apparent that those 2 fields belong together from a visual standpoint. If you simply click the edit summary, then yeah, it looks just like 2 WYSIWYG fields, CK editor fields, and yeah.
With as who was it? Simo, I think, pointed out that there's only one basic HTML. Again, I think that's not made any worse by adding CK editor. That's So I would call that out of scope for the current issue. It's more related to the other issue that I think Seema reminded us of, that the edit summary link is unclear.
And in regards, of that edit summary link, it's basically a problem that was surfaced also in the context of toggle buttons, and it's basically a toggle button. And having two different labels is problematic for screen reader users, meaning if you're on hide summary, what is your current state? And if you're on show summary, what is your current state? Is it shown? Is it not shown? And a screen reader user without the visual context could struggle. And having one for screen readers, one label across states, and you have them basically show summary active or selected, and then in case it's not active or selected, then that state is missing. It's way more clear and easier. And yeah, they could be simply used an ARIA label in that context. And to use the identical label for both states for screen reader users would be maybe a reasonable choice.
Okay, but Ralph, I still think that all of those comments are more applicable to this issue. And
Yeah, agree.
Simo just mentioned in the chat that we suggested here to wrap the summary and the full text in a field set. Which comment was that?
I think after that one, maybe was it number 26?
Okay. Wrap summary and full text into a field set. So yeah, I think that those are of course valid points, but out of scope for the current issue. The current issue is just, you know, it's not about changing the label or visual indication of the relation between the two fields. It's just about when you do open the summary, providing the WYSIWYG editor for it. And do you agree, disagree? Not hearing any comments. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, this is more usable than the current status, that having the WYSIWYG editor in the summary field is better than not having it. Oh, I see some more comments. Scott and Ralph agree that putting them in the field set is a good idea. It would provide a panel inset to separate and make them feel more together, but another issue. Okay, I think we all agree on that then.
So
Go ahead.
this version doesn't allow setting or selecting whether or not to display that CK editor on the summary. So it's either or. So with this, it's automatic to have CK editor.
I believe so, but let's do a little experimentation. I assume that in the form settings, no, in the text editor settings, we can choose to enable CK editor or not, and I assume it'll apply to both. But let's just confirm that. Content authoring, text format and editors. So if we, for example, change the text format to restricted HTML or plain text, then it should go away on both of them. And it does. If it's basic or if it's full, then we get the editor in both of them. So yeah, same text format applies to both. Which, thinking about it a little bit, I think is probably a good thing. Scott has to drop an offer as well. So it's down to 3 of us. Any further comments on this? I'm ready to leave a comment on it and basically give a thumbs up to the current approach. Go ahead.
I agree in general, a thumbs up, but my only, in air quotes, problem is in case that body with text with summary field gets deprecated. I'm not sure why it should still be kept on working on it, or will that deprecated field be moved into contrib? And that way it would be still be used, or is it just dropped at one point? Because the idea should be basically that people are upgrading to the latest version of Drupal. And if you basically keep on adding new functionality and improving deprecated or soon to be deprecated functions, I'm not sure. That is my only worry I have.
Yeah, and I would certainly address that in the comment, and that's what we talked about at the start. So assuming that the issue to deprecate is successful, it will still be available in Drupal 10 and Drupal 11, deprecated in Drupal 11. Even Drupal 10 is going to be with us for several more years. So we have an issue where work has already been done. It seems to be functional. So the work is already done. It will have an effect for several years. I think that's a good enough reason to go ahead with it.
Okay, true. Yeah, from that point of view, if it isn't that much of work and more discussions have to happen, then I agree it would be good. But I'm just my worry is that more details come up, it will, and more work is required. But yeah, if it could go in as is, then this would be fine.
That's true, and it's the responsibility of the framework managers to consider the maintenance burden of every new feature. And I think that yeah, I think that it was also tagged for framework manager review. But our responsibility as the usability team is to comment on the usability aspects of it. So okay, I'm happy to leave a comment on this issue. And we're a little more than halfway through the hour. Shall we try to find another issue to look at?
Could I ask if you've come across issue related? I just saw in that changing the text format on that site with the patch applied, changing the text format from maybe make the window like 1/4 narrower, so there is less space. and maybe first change it into maybe restricted HTML text format,
Want rid of first, make it restricted.
and then make the window more narrow.
Actually, if I expand the
Yeah.
sidebar, does that have the same effect?
Yeah,
I just think that for the sake of the Zoom recording this, that might be
yeah. And
better.
then when you change to full HTML, a full HTML, it's that one. And here we see that it pushes part of the like the sidebar away from the window. So that's something that I find confusing. I don't know if there is a solution how to keep it in the same size or something like that. But I noticed that I had a little bit more narrow window, and that was confusing. That changing that text format moves
Right.
that.
I noticed the same problem. I didn't say anything about it, but that's why I collapsed my navigation toolbar.
So do we know if there is an issue about this?
I'm not aware of one.
Yeah.
Me neither.
And I assume the difference between basic and full HTML is the width of the toolbar.
Yes.
But one question is that sidebar or is it the advanced actions, is it called? Is that similar to basically the settings tray or overlay, or how it's called? Is it basically the same functionality? Because if you resize that with that overlay open, then you have similar problems. And the right sidebar being positioned, or the overlay on the right outside the window or in half and so forth.
So let's see, back on my Umami site. So I could edit the layout. I could add a block, for example, that'll open the settings tray.
And if you now resize it, it's and also similar problems.
But if you just make it narrow enough, then it drops under the main column of the form. So it's kind of maybe it's some sort of breakpoint issue.
Not only breakpoints, but I'm not entirely sure. It's not very responsive. Let's put it that way, and it's even more surfaced. For example, if you go under configuration and could you quickly go, what's it called? On configuration, user interface, and navigation blocks. On that page, if you've now opened, for example, add a block, the button in the sidebar. Yeah, there that is behaving quite odd and off, and same for the same page preview, which is also some based on that overlay. And yeah, my initial question was is if that component is similar or identically built like the sidebar on that node edit form, or if that is something different.
So I think that both the sidebar tray and the navigation are very different from the sidebar in the node edit form.
Okay.
So I think structurally, this region or this div, whatever it is grouped with the rest of the node edit form. In fact, let's just so this is the div for that right sidebar. It's inside this wrapper. And the other wrapper is the main part of the edit form, and then there's some footer region.
But it has a class called layout region.
That is not related to
Okay.
layout builder. And all three of those are contained in this div, which is inside the form. So I think that's, and you can see that the navigation component is outside all of that. And this settings tray is certainly outside of all of that as well. So does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this particular bug that when you switch to full HTML, this stuff gets pushed off the edge of the screen. I suspect that's a bug with the navigation module. And
should we maybe uninstall the navigation module for a second and see if how the behavior is with admin toolbar?
Sure.
1 sec, I'll quickly uninstall. Navigation, install, and quickly clear the cache. Okay.
Okay, so let's put the toolbar on the left. So putting the toolbar on the left also creates the same problem. So it's not the navigation. And let's see if we say switch from full HTML back to basic HTML, which doesn't take up quite so much space, then again it fits. So it's a problem with either the navigation module or the toolbar in vertical mode. So where would, I guess that would be problem with the Claro theme. And Ralph says in the chat, at least it's consistent, yes.
I think Claro has several issues about that left and right side on the node edit form. And it's actually something that I think some time ago, Christina wrote that we need to have a kind of a full solution for that, so that we can have narrow content, so that the text lines are not too long, and then wide content for different kinds of complex paragraphs and other that kind of a complex content that's editable in the edit form. So I think there is a, if I remember right, there is a meta issue, and if this doesn't exist there already as an issue, this could be maybe added as an example.
Right. So you could either search for the issues yourself, or you could mention it in the what is the channel admin theme?
Admin UI.
Admin UI, right? Probably ask in that Slack channel and get an answer. Okay, so we have a little less than 15 minutes left. Is that enough time to look at another issue? Or shall we just have a short meeting today?
Well, I think 15 minutes is enough time to do something, but we are only 3 people present here. So
Right.
it would be nice to have more.
Well, if you two are both willing to spend a little more time, then let's have a look at some of these issues. How about this one, unless one of you has a preference? Link field validation constraints don't give enough detail. For the sake of the recording, this is 3262935. 3 of the validation constraints for link fields give the error message, quote, "The path at URI is invalid," end quote. Link not existing internal constraint validator catches 3 different kinds of exception, which all produce this message. Link type constraint validator handles 2 different errors. Link is internal, but only externals allowed, and vice versa, but only shows this message for both. This makes it difficult to figure out what is wrong with the field value. And the proposed resolution is to explain the specific problem in the validation messages so the user knows what they need to fix. So, shall we first try to generate some of those error messages?
Yep. And shall I apply the patch?
Yes, thank you.
Hopefully it does, because it's still for 10.1.
So let's see, article doesn't have a link field, so structure, content types.
Nope, doesn't apply.
So let's add a link field to the article content type. And let's say internal links only. I go back and edit my article. So now I have interesting. I'm not sure why that is showing up.
Hmm.
But if I try to put an URL to say Drupal, I'm going to try to save that. Get error message, the path such and such is invalid. And the whole link field is highlighted in red. So it's a little annoying that we can't specifically highlight this text field. We also highlight this one, even though there's nothing wrong with the link text. And the error message is not very specific. That's what this issue is talking about. Any further questions on what the issue is about?
Nope.
And can I do something similar on your site, Ralph?
Yeah, but the patch, I was unable to apply the patches for 10.1 and it failed with composer patches.
Okay, so we can't actually get a live test of the patch. What's the most recent comment? Why am I scrolling? I should have clicked. Anyway, several months ago. And why was it tagged for usability review? It was originally tagged in 2023 in February, and then the tag was removed by Laurie in a few months later. The new validation messages at least make sense to me. I agree that it's a good idea to pay extra attention to the error messages because they are critical to user experience. And then it was added back. No, it was never added back. So is it still tagged for usability review? No.
No.
That's right. It didn't show up when I was looking at that list. It's just an issue that we've been tracking for a long time. So it should still be tagged for usability, but not usability review. Although it needs an issue summary, it doesn't have any screenshots. It doesn't have much.
And the
Doesn't have a
user,
very specific proposed resolution.
and also the user interface changes are missing. Basically,
Right.
that's the strings used. But we could take a look at those.
Take a look at what?
We could take a look at the patch, at the code itself, and there you are able to see the proposed changes.
So the patch is adding this section, so it's adding several new strings. The path URI doesn't exist. The path URI has an invalid parameter, or the path URI is missing a required parameter.
But if you scroll down, there are more strings. The path URI is invalid and then is external, but the link field only supports internal paths.
Path URI is invalid. Path URI is external, but the link field only supports internal paths. I have a feeling we might shorten that a little bit. The path URI is internal, but the link field only supports external paths. Those are at least clear. I think they could be a little bit shorter, but I think as is, they are an improvement over the non-specific message we currently have. It's a pretty simple patch. So we have a few minutes left. What do you think of these two messages? Can we suggest a slight shortening of them?
Maybe remove the but the part. Simply the path URI is external. Link field only supports internal paths. Or link fields only support internal paths. To
Oh, I
phrase it
wouldn't
more
say
general.
link fields. That suggests all link fields, but it's a configuration option. It can be
Oh,
configured.
yeah. Okay, true. True. But if it's a configuration option, in that case, then supports is also the wrong way to express it. Because supports indirectly means, yeah, link fields in general only support that.
So let me just use browser tools to insert the proposed text here. Although we're down to 2 minutes, maybe I don't really have time for that. Let me put a line break in here. So you can see them side by side. So I would make it 2 sentences. The path such and such is external period. This field only supports internal paths. That's a tiny bit shorter, a few characters less. But it's 2 short sentences rather than 1 long sentence. But I have a feeling we could do better than that, but we're out of time. So unless one of you wants to leave the comment, and I know, Ralph, you're still working on a comment from last week's meeting. I have time today. I think I'll leave comments on both of these issues, if that's okay with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks for sticking through the end of the meeting. And I'll see you next week, I hope.
Till next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.